you, Anne, and continue with our focus on the 8th Assembly and what it is that they've achieved. Can the Senate take that bow? The senator says, if it is all false and nobody praises it, they will praise themselves. But we're looking at the number of bills here before the Senate, and hopefully what can they achieve before we wrap up. You were going to stay.
Yes, but I'll wait that GMO matter, then I'll bring it. Because what I wanted to ask has to do with manufacturing in Nigeria and the competition law, which is before the Senate. What's the situation? But then Sulai was going to talk about the genetically modified goods and products that are coming into the country and allegations that people are being bribed to get them into, sneak them in somehow.
Because what that means, by extension, because we've been doing extensive research on that, and good thing you're a vet expert, is first, when you get your seed, if it is high yield, I can't even have access to it, because if I do, I can get sued because of that. And we're also looking at the implication of so many other countries putting a ban on GMOs, that it's a no-no. But the news making the rounds, because some of them, we have them by email, is that Nigeria is now the destination of some of these people coming in to say, we'll give you high yields, and these are GMOs. And we think that that's what the National Assembly should also look into very quickly if there's any
all right. I think
concern.
because of the concern with respect to public health on the GMO, I think let me take on that before I come to Inyota's point. The issue here is that it's unfortunate that in this country we don't have a systematic approach to how we handle things. I was in Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and the issue of GMO has been in this country for about 30 years now. And when you say genetic engineering, it's a kind of hierarchy of events. When you have fermentation, for example, it's more or less like genetic engineering, because microbes are responsible for changing the present form of whatever it is that is being fermented. That is the low level. And the high level is where you decide to take a genetic component from one particular species or one particular variety into another, because there is something good here you want to put here. Now, what I knew personally, because I've been involved in this subject matter, is that if you want to bring in the issue of GMO, because yes, technology is good for our growth. A situation where you're having increasing population, you must begin to have food production that will match the population growth. That has always been the argument. But the concern now is, what approach do you use? For me, what we said much earlier is that it's wrong for us to just go wholesale into GMO in this country. What we said was, the technology is good. Let's apply the technology on non-food products like cotton or rubber and other things that we know we're not going to consume directly into our system, so that you go through and perfect that technology, have the required human capital in your country. And the concern in with respect to GMO is what they call biosafety. Now, biosafety is just simply saying that that particular commodity, when you take it, is it going to be harmful to the body or not? That is one. Two, if you bring that particular variety into your country, is it going to affect the biodiversity in your own country? Because at the end, you end up having some of these genes moving away and getting into other land races, maybe your natural land races, and at the end of the day, you end up having super weeds on some other concerns. This has been well documented in science. But you see, the tendency we tend to have is, some people, we want to rush this country without putting all the necessary, check, what do you call it, due diligence in terms of our safety and otherwise.
And we don't have proper labeling.
So this is my concern. And today, unfortunately, over the past 16 years, politicians have also abused the process. Because somebody goes out, because he has authority, he goes in, carry 1 or 2 or 3, seed of these varieties, come into the country, and before you know what's happening, he's giving it out for farmers to use.
Are you going to legislate on this?
Now, there is a legislation. It's just abuse that is taking place, because the agencies that are responsible for tracking some of these things are not empowered. The plant quarantine, in fact, just the day before yesterday, I think we took the plant quarantine act, the Senate just passed it for second reading. I mean, passed the bill into law, because over the years, if you remember, the quarantine people were removed from the ports. Yet, if you go to other countries, they are supposed to be the key people who should be in the ports, because if you go to Australia, New Zealand, all these countries, they don't joke with these things. You can't bring one seed, because if you introduce a seed, let me tell you the procedure. You are supposed to have what they call multi-locational trial. You bring in a seed, we're supposed to go under control environment and have these trials across this country to see how do they work. But what we have here now is people will go, somebody will just travel, bribe his way, or use other, unconventional means to get these things into the country, go to his farm and start planting them. So this is the danger, and I think I agree with you that we need to do something. I know there is an agency for biosafety.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here, Nigerian Biosafety Management Agency.
Yes, they've just been, I think it was one of the bills that were passed by the 7th Senate in 2015. And my take is that is the kind of agency that should be strengthened. Because if you have that agency strengthened, you cannot introduce any GMO without them saying so. Which means they will be able to track if it's good, because it's not as if it's all of them that are bad, but honestly, let's face reality. There's a lot that is wrong with that issue.
And the earlier they do that, the better.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this as we wind down. The herdsmen and several farming communities clash. What is the Senate doing on this?
Yes, I think if you remember, we had a public hearing on that subject matter. And I'm a member of the Committee on Agriculture. It was a joint public hearing between the Committee on Agriculture and the National Security and Intelligence. And we've come up with a number of recommendations. And I will tell you, even when the Ministry of Agriculture came, I think they are also of the opinion strongly that we shouldn't be talking about grazing reserves at the national level, and we should talk more about ranching. And I think personally as a professional, I submit to that view, because yes, the grazing reserve is a good thing if a state wants to have it, because agriculture is on the concurrent list. And I can see, for example, Sokoto State, Tambuwal, I think 2 days ago, was saying that Sokoto State is going to have grazing reserve. There's nothing wrong with that. But then, the issue here is, let's ask ourselves one hard question. Why do these herdsmen move? Primarily 4 things. For feed, for water, to ensure that there is, medication or health, good health for the animals, and for marketing. And I will submit that until we address these 4 concerns, you cannot make progress. Now, in terms of feed, it's unfortunate, I must tell you this, I was from the research system. In terms of what we call pasture development, the rangers, what we call range managers, those people who will ensure that the type of grass or feed resource in a particular area is not overgrazed, it's not killed, we don't even have them again. There is nobody in the employment of most states or even federal that you call a range manager. That is the service we have done to this country over the past years. We've killed that particular. In fact, the National Animal Production Research Institute, NAPRI in Zaria, has a program on that. For 15 years, there was nobody who was employed in that area. And the man who was the youngest of them became a professor without anybody below him. And it was just about 3 years ago that they started employing some young graduates into that, which means we have neglected this particular area, because ordinarily, feed should be an industry. And you can have people producing feed even from the south and taking to the north for people to feed their livestock.
Well, we'll hope that at the end of the day, the recommendations is what a lot of people, at least, will be pleasing to the public. And then we also hope that Nigerians will be able to vote electronically after the Electoral Act is amended, because that's a very big issue. But then, if you could conclude by telling us, do you think there's so much concentration of power at the center that the federating units don't really have much to do? In fact, people say what we actually have is a unitary system, not even the federation system as well.
Well, like I said, in a democracy, different shades of opinion come to play. But my take here is that, unfortunately, while we have 3 arms of government, we have allowed the other 2 arms to become weak. Not because they don't have resources, but because we have never even critically examined them as we examine one arm, which is the federal. Because it means the other resources, for example, local government. And I'm sad because I'm from Borgu local government, and I've had a study to look at 10 years of allocation to local governments, and including my own. And the amount of money in the 8 local governments covering my senatorial district over the past 10 years is about 130 billion. I bet you can't go to Niger North and point at a project that is worth 10 billion over the past 16 years of governance. Where has the money gone into? Well, so to me, I think this is the most important point. Let's emphasize on good governance. Whichever way you look at it, from the center, the state, the local government, it's all endemic mismanagement of resources.
I know Chamberlain said we're out of time, and really we're out of time. But before you go, a bit of politics here. We can't talk about 365 days without talking about the leadership of the Senate. And we know what he's going through at the tribunal. What kind of support is he still getting from amongst the senators?
Absolute support.
Is the Senate distracted?
The Senate is not in any way distracted because we have remained very committed. In fact, in assessing the legislature, the former U.S. President Kennedy said there are 4 points, and one of them is dedication. We have remained dedicated to our duty, and that's why over the past 1 year we've had over 68 public hearings on issues ranging from the hike in tariff to labor issues to the issue of the herdsmen, to the issue of flooding, to the issue of the incessant security challenges, kidnappers. All of these things we've had public hearing. So we remain very dedicated. We've passed, we've handled over 170 resolutions, motions, whereby we're looking at critical issues affecting the peace and order. So to me, remember, twice we're giving the Senate President overwhelming vote of confidence. So that vote of confidence still stands. And I want to assure you that Senator Abubakar Bukola Saraki, as the Senate President, has provided stability to this 8th Senate, and he has brought inclusiveness of both all arms of. So you cannot even see the party line in the way we reason, because we have said, by the virtue of the Constitution, we are statesmen, and in every action we take, we must act as statesmen.
Okay, I'm afraid I have to let it go. I know there's so many questions there, including that of the Interior Ministry, the sacking, several things, but guys, we just have to let it go, unfortunately. But we'll hope that we'll be able to get the senator back and review the year. It's 1 year, and this is just how many hours? Not even up to an hour. So we clearly can't look at all of those issues. So we'll apologize to as many as we want their questions in, we can't get them in. Senator Ailyu Sabi-Abdullahi is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs. We thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
We'll be back in just a moment. Join us again.